It's finally time for one of Warcraft's biggest stories to crash onto the Isles, Nozdormu and Morozond, Galakron appearing, and our first face-off against Iridikron. Okay, we knew this was coming, the question was when, and it turns out the answer is damn soon in patch 10.1.5 Fractures in Time. It's got a mega dungeon, the lore keeps on getting more intense, it's called Dawn of the Infinite, and with a name like that, you can bet that Nozdormu will be taking his rightful place as the aspect of the infinite dragonflight. Now, the last time we saw them properly, fully in Cataclysm, they were pushing for the end time, total old god domination of the world. Now, we can put a lot of clues together. How does all this time stuff fit into Iridikron and the whole storyline we've seen be playing out? But, to begin, we've got to go to the smallest and potentially most important character to this whole thing, Chromie. And today's sponsor. Skillshare, where the first 1,000 to click my link will get a month of premium for free. Right, we did a behind-the-scenes documentary for our upcoming game, The Pale Beyond, and it was actually pretty damn good case for Skillshare, because Nathaniel Drew is one of the great creators of YouTube, and How to Speak Confidently on Camera, a guide for content creators, is absolutely fantastic. This is something that took me absolutely years to become just okay at, so the help sure would have been nice. Here Nathaniel will teach you a lot about his process, even show his own behind the scenes, and I mean, for our behind the scenes, certainly the likes of this, extremely useful, because as it turns out, talking to a camera is really quite hard. Doing it naturally, very daunting. Like, I know, I've been there. And what Nathaniel does in this is just really fantastic. If you're interested in getting into any of this stuff, maybe even just thinking about, presentation at work, talking into a camera, which now a lot of us do, a hell of a lot more, I think you should check it out. Directly useful in your day-to-day and a brilliant skill for everybody to have. I mean, whether it's Zoom at work, using your phone to promote yourself, your business, just having fun making stuff online, what better mentor than Nathaniel? No goal is too small, everything's a journey, and right now I'm in a position where being used to talking on camera, it's just a really good, useful skill to have. One I'd recommend. Skillshare, of course, has a wealth of career-focused classes, if that's what you're interested in, be it the likes of video editing, photography, and illustration, like with my job, as we've covered today, learning new platforms like Shopify, or just honing your craft. So, check out Skillshare today. The first 1,000 to click my link will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Guarding the one true timeline is quite a job. It's always in flux, and sometimes you don't even realize someone's messing with it. That's why Nozdormu is always trapped in thought, or perhaps straight up misses a key event, like empowering the Heart of Azeroth. I mean, yeah, he didn't show up for that. But Chromie is always there to help when her aspect can't. She's been the lead investigator into the Morozond mystery. All the way back in time, in Wrath of the Lich King's bronze Dragonshrine, she discovered who Morozond was. But she was confused because it was just a vision of Nozdormu, so she wanted to find out more, but no, Nozdormu, Morozond, they're the same. She has been core then to this Morozond story since its inception, which could lead to the biggest twist yet. What if Chromie is somehow the key to Nozdormu's fall? Or should I say, Morchi, her infinite counterpart? But I mean, seriously, what? Why? We saw Chromie fight Fang and Claw with Eternus to save the Bronze Oathstone. She thinks the Infinite are horrible monsters, and she spent most of her time trying to save Nozdormu. But no, she perhaps could be the paradox that causes his downfall, and the story may be going into another surprising direction. So in Thaltrassus, we saw Chromie and Eternus trapped in the temporal conflux that was just being thrown through time, right? When freed, they landed snout to snout in a mirror image. That had to be intentional. But they, of course, were still trapped in the Black Empire, and the only way to get back to the future was to work together. That was the first bit of understanding between the Bronze and the Infinites, and it could be setting the tone for the flights, realizing they perhaps have more in common than they think. After all, this expansion has gone to great lengths to make the Titans, or at least their agents, known as Keepers, into, to be uncharitable liars, to be charitable people who selectively told stories that were useful to them. Now, if the majority of what we know about the Titans comes from the perspective of Odin, who, as we've long established, is a total dickhead, then could that be the case for this whole one true timeline thing as well? I mean, even Chromie is starting to doubt the one true timeline, saying she would rather subvert the true timeline to save Nozdormu than to blindly follow it. Which totally seems like the seed for her arc into Morchi, and I suppose it's kind of like some light Sith shit, isn't it? Now, if Nozdormu sees there is more to the infinite way of thinking, via his most trusted agent becoming Morchi, right, Chromie turning, then maybe he has an avenue for accepting his fate and becoming Morozond. If that lines up, then maybe we have a solution for who tried to kill Chromie back in Legion. Because yeah, loads of people have forgotten about it, but the deaths of Chromie just might be key. Chromie has one huge outstanding mystery. Who the hell tried to kill her in Legion? So the deaths of Chromie it's a real head scratcher. It's also a marvelous bit of content that you absolutely need to play if you haven't. Basically, Chromie realized that someone was trying to kill her at different points in time, but our Chromie then still did have time to try and save herself. So we traveled the timelines with Chromie, trying to figure out what the hell was going on after Satyr, Scourge, and various others were trying to blast her and worm her. So we go 10,000 years into the past. It's into the Well of Eternity, right? The Cataclysm aspects have just showed up to get the Dragon Soul, and we see that Chromie gets completely fried with fell fire and is killed. We go to the Battle of Anderhall, where the Alliance and the Horde are both trying to kill her. So we've got Fel, we've got Void, we've got Death, we've got all the factions, everyone's trying to kill Chromie. We of course save her, we fix all the timeline stuff, but when we asked her who did it and what was going on, well, she didn't have much to say, but there was cut text from the PTR version of it where she said that we would find out in time. Well, we haven't found out, and it very much seems that now is the time. So, who did it? It has to be someone powerful with time magic, which narrows our options down to the likes of the Bronze and the Infinite Dragonflight. Now sure, there are other timekeepers, but I think nobody with the motivation to kill Chromie, which is really the most important part. So why would they want to kill her? I mean, there's a few options. Was it Morchi? Did Morchi want to kill Chromie? But if Morchi did that, then Chromie would never become Morchi. And plenty of times where we've seen the Infinites go to try to kill people, they end up killing people that they know would present a problem to them in the future. It's all time bullshit, don't worry about it. What about Morozond himself? Well, if Chromie is the key to saving Nozdormu, sure, but we know Nozdormu dies as Morozond because we killed him, and Morchi is probably as loyal to her aspect as Chromie is. So why would he take out one of his greatest agents before they got the chance to do anything? Does kind of just leave you with the Bronze Flight. Who knows, maybe that's a crackpot theory. But Chromie is currently wrapped up in the heart of this infinite story. She is going to be going toe-to-toe with them throughout history. But the moment of corruption is coming, and if Chromie is the key to that, or Morchi is the first of the Infinites, then the Bronze would have all the motivation they would need to take her out. Could we see the Deaths of Chromie Part 2, where we have to go back in time and, I don't know, do hijinks with demons, satyrs, and Scourge into killing Chromie? Well, that would be a bit crazy. I suppose it would kind of explain things, but anyway, no matter, the Deaths of Chromie is a humongous mystery. We don't really know who orchestrated it, and it's almost certainly going to be relevant here. So as you know, the Bronze Flight are the protectors of the one true timeline. That's the big Titan timeline where they see themselves awakening Azeroth as the final Titan and everything comes up Aman'Thul and they're all happy. Now the Infinite Flight wants to change this one true timeline, and the traditional answer is what Morozond sort of said. So when Aman'Thul empowered Nozdormu, he showed him much of time, not everything, but key to that is that he did show him his own death. And the logic goes that at the moment of Nozdormu's death, the old gods are going to try to trick him into subverting it, which then ends up creating a time paradox that's beyond repair, shatters a bunch of bullshit, and the Bronze Flight end up having their big old rebellion. Some of them end up going infinite. But that story playing out on the Dragon Isles seems kind of slim right now. I mean, all the old gods are dead or elsewhere, and yeah, their legacy is on the Dragon Isles, but it's not like we've seen Yogg or N'Zoth whispering into people's ears, telling them to go and subvert deaths. But don't worry, there is more to it. So, Nozdormu saw something else. Something coming for us that is so horrifying that the end time, which we see in that Cataclysm dungeon, which is the old god Victory in Azeroth, would, per Morozond at the time, really be the good option compared to what else is going to happen. So literally, that dungeon where we kill Morozond, that is his idea of the good ending. So what's coming then? We don't know, obviously. It likely has something to do with what N'Zoth and the jailer spent. I know, sorry, I don't like to bring the jailer up, but it kind of happened, didn't he? What is to come, right? Whatever the big spooky horizon thing is. Now, of course, the thing is that Warcraft has changed a lot since the Cataclysm. Did they even know what Morozond was saying when he said his final words? Aman'Thul, what I have seen. And what did he see? What did they think it was back then? Does it line up with all this cosmic stuff we saw with Zovaal? Does it mesh in with this cosmic void stuff that we've seen in Aberrus that's actually been really cool? I mean, who knows? But what we have seen a lot of in this expansion is, of course, the Incarnates and the Spectre of Galakrond. You might be wondering how all of this fits into Morozond's story. Okay, now it's time to put the puzzle pieces together. So we turned up on the Dragon Isles, and as soon as we got to the seat of the aspect, we have Nozdormu's vision being clouded, right? He can't see through the timelines. Now that happened to him back in the Cataclysm. And who was it then? Well, it was the only person powerful enough to counter him, Morozond. So who's behind it this time? Probably Morozond. I mean, Morozond picks his moments well, clouding Nozdormu's vision only on the eve of very significant events, and the big event this time round seemingly is Nozdormu finally becoming Morozond. So we know Morozond's true death happens in Cataclysm, or at least that's one ending for him. I suppose it technically depends on Blizzard's interpretation of time bullshit, but whatever. I doubt, and we know for a fact, that we won't be killing him in this mega dungeon. No, the plan has got to run much deeper, and it's got to tap into a force powerful enough not only to destroy the aspects, but everybody else. Galakrond, then. And this is where the whole thing comes together with one guy standing in the middle of all of it, and that guy is Iridikron. We're finally going to fight Iridikron in Dawn of the Infinite, the new mega dungeon. We're not going to defeat him, but we will fight him. Now, he's got himself one of Nozdormu's most powerful artifacts, and he's jumped back in time to use it. For what, we don't exactly know, but we have to distract him for long enough to allow Chromie to stop it. So why? I mean, we know Iridikron, right? What? He's pretty straightforward. He just wants to kill the aspects and turn everything the Titans built to dust. But there is something a bit deeper here, and a bargain with Morozond from deep in the past that I think is coming to bite us in the ass. So, the established lore of Iridikron that we find out after the raid is that he was the last of the Incarnates to be imprisoned, right? Now that's because in the final days of the Dragon Wars, when all the other ones were imprisoned, Iridikron made a bargain with something terrible for power. And a lot of people have wondered, who is it? Is it an old god? No, probably not. That's what Deathwing did. It would be a bit boring if Iridikron, the earthy incarnate, did the same thing. Some people have speculated the light, but given how Blizzard are obviously going to want to tie their timelines together, it seems pretty damn obvious that he made a bargain with Morozond and the infinite dragonflight. But what does each side get in this bargain? Well, for Iridikron it could be pretty straightforward. Power. Enough power to destroy the aspects. What could the Infinites give him? Well, I think the big thing is Galakrond. They could literally drag a horror from the past to Iridikron, give him access to that, and have Iridikron either, well, what we're pretty sure happens in the dungeon, try to slurp up some of that good Galakrond juice, become very, very powerful and strong. Right? Seems to make sense. Now, to go further in all this, we know via the Dungeon Journal that the Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon features an infinite corrupted Tyr, right? He's the whole reason the aspects became a thing. It's Tyr who did the uplifting, and he could be the key to their undoing. It's also kind of implied that he accidentally kind of created Galakrond in the past. Now, there's way more to get into with Tyr becoming infinite, but I think you can see the possibilities Iridikron has by teaming up with Morozond. He could literally make it so that the aspects never existed. He could somehow access all of that big, great Galakrond power, and as I'm sure you've seen from Twitter and stuff like that, and people doing size comparisons, Galakron's like way bigger than a city. Galakron's very, very chunky. Now, what do the Infinites get out of this? Well, their number one motivation is to make sure that Nozdormu becomes Morozond and that they happen. The Infinites that we see in the Mega Dungeon come from a timeline where that has already happened, and I suppose they are there to ensure that it does happen. Perhaps that it does happen in the one true timeline. Who knows? It's time bullshit. Making a bargain with Iridikron and knowing that he would be imprisoned for 20,000 years, that would be absolutely nothing to them. If I was good at making music sounds with my voice, which I can't, I would start humming the Tenant music and saying, temporal pincer move, and, you know, other associated Christopher Nolan bullshit. Anyway, the key to their plan is here and now, where Iridikron is finally free, right? He can now kind of do his end of the bargain, and I suppose for the Infinites, they get to ensure that Morozond happens, and for Iridikron, he gets to go destroy aspects, which is the sort of thing that is also kind of in line with what the Infinites probably want. I'm sure they're not big Titan fans. And so we see this convergence, right? We see the Infinites, this plot line being unleashed in the Isles right as Nozdormu is fated to become Morozond. There's only one outstanding part of the plan. It's rather huge. We're once again being forced to dive into Timeways and clean up the Infinite Dragon mess. But the stakes are higher than ever. They are back in the scene with one thing in mind, making Morozond a reality. To do that, they've made a bargain with Iridikron. They're both getting something out of it, and whatever it is, it's bad news for us. But there's been one thing outstanding. How are they going to use Galakrond? It's not like we're just fighting Galakrond in the dungeon. I mean, look at the screenshots. We're going back to just after Galakrond died. Now, there is something about Galakrond's legacy and the empowerment of the aspects that we're going to find out likely in 10.15, and really the only thing between us and that knowledge, rather fittingly, is time. I would imagine, at the very least, that when he is freshly dead, that's pretty much when it's going to be time to slurp up all of his essence. I mean, obviously, you go to him right now, he's just bones. It's like the Scourge tried to do a thing with that. We obviously thwarted that. But now he's just bones. He's not particularly useful. So evidently, him and his recently deceased form is really important. I mean, why else would we go back to when he's recently deceased? So there you go. Big things are going on. I think what's likely going to happen then is we will see the dawn of the Infinite, as the dungeon's called. This is the first thing we'll see, and the second thing we'll see is Iridikron getting even more power, being able to go further along his plan, setting up some big bullshit for patch 10.2. Whatever craziness will go on there. I imagine then that with a 10.25 and a 10.27, which will probably then end with, I don't know, maybe a 10.3 that's also like a greatest hit season, that'll be kind of it for this expansion. And whenever we defeat Iridikron, I think some big, juicy thing is going to happen that will propel us into the future. There you go. That's the theory. Tell me what you think. Okay, with that said, you can hit the box that is either here or here for some more content. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our sponsor for sponsoring, help us pay the bills. With that, I'll see you next time.